After yesterday's assault on the Capitol, we are now turning our attention to what comes next, and there is a lot of questions surrounding that. We're live now with Dr. Greg Vonnahme from UMKC.
Now, Greg, the president has 13 days left in his term. We're hearing that lawmakers are talking about invoking the 25th Amendment. What is the feasibility of impeaching the president at this point?
So it's unlikely at this point. I think what we're seeing with talk of either impeachment or invoking the 25th Amendment, both of those are ways of removing a president. I think at this point that is a precautionary measure. I think a lot of lawmakers are concerned with what they saw yesterday, but not so concerned as to take action to remove the president. I think they're taking those initial steps, having those conversations. So if violence continues or if there are more extreme or extraordinary measures, then we may see them actually act. But at this point, I don't think further action on the 25th Amendment or impeachment is likely.
Dr. Vonnahme, we had you on our show at this very time yesterday morning discussing what the day ahead looked like. We all said that things could take a turn, things could get violent. We knew that there were going to be a lot of eyes on D.C. Yeah. How vulnerable does this make us appear to the rest of the world that people from our own country were able to enter the U.S. Capitol, take control of it? And what kind of message does that send, especially to foreign enemies who do want to commit harm to the American people?
So I think there are two aspects to that. The first aspect of that is obviously there's a lot of attention on the occupation of the Capitol building itself. I mean, that was obviously a very troubling episode in our history. I think that was largely a product of the Capitol Police underestimating the size and aggression of the crowd. I don't think they'll make that mistake again. I think longer term, one of the more concerning issues that hasn't gotten a lot of attention is authorities also found pipe bombs outside the DNC and the RNC. That I think long term is a more pressing security problem.
Absolutely. Now, this was the final straw for many allies of Donald Trump, but not for Josh Hawley. He's now wearing this scarlet S. He's being called a seditionist. People are saying he has blood on his hands now. How much of the blame does he hold, and what are the repercussions that he could face?
So some members of Congress are calling for his expulsion. That's unlikely. It's very rare. I mean, I think it's been over 100 years since any member of Congress has been expelled. So that's unlikely. I think going forward, assuming no other issues or crises come up, if there's no other disruptions, if the inauguration goes off on January 20th without further disruption, I think it's unlikely that Josh Hawley will face significant political or administrative repercussions.
And something that needs mentioned this morning, there are a lot of people comparing protesting this summer over the Black Lives Matter movement to the chaos that we saw yesterday at the U.S. Capitol on federal grounds. To provide some perspective here, can you dive into what the differences are? These two groups, they are fighting for two entirely different things. And it's easy for a lot of people to take to social media and say, yeah, but guess what? This happened just 6 months ago over the summer. What's the difference?
Right, and what we saw last night, the big difference that we saw last night is, and yesterday afternoon and last night, was an effort to disrupt a constitutional procedure. So that happened in the context of the Electoral College vote certification in Congress. That was much more targeted. It did temporarily disrupt it, but very early this morning, Congress was able to certify the Electoral College results.
Just a deplorable day in our history. Greg Vonnahme, thank you for talking with us this morning. We'll hear from you again in our 9 o'clock hour.